What up, though? It's the word. You see the title. I'm gonna talk about it. But first, do me a small favor. Hit that like, and if you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe. I'm a small channel, and I'm trying to grow. The more I grow, the more information I can give. Right. So, what we gonna do today? We go react to a video about Karma Sutras. Go give us a brief overview, and I'm gonna build on it. Then I'm gonna tell you how I benefited from a lot of the lessons. Videos from Beef Biceps. I would suggest you go over there and check out the full length video. This is only a snippet of it. So, Beef Biceps, I'll put the link in the description.
You how you would explain the world of the Kama Sutra in the most simple way. How would you explain it to a 20-year-old?
So interestingly, I've discovered that the Kama Sutra, like you said, if I have to actually explain it in the shortest possible way, Kama Sutra is about pleasure, not about sex. Okay, sex is a very physical act that anybody can indulge in the act of sex. Pleasure is something that only the human mind can actually understand and indulge in. Pleasure is a much longer lasting thing, and it's actually extremely good for you, and it is something that actually takes you to a whole different height. It's supposed to elevate you. It's supposed to make you reach certain heights that you can't otherwise reach.
But
Now, what she's talking about is this is the karma part, this is the energy, but you're also dealing with duality, the two extremes of the same thing coming together. So now what you have is an energy transfer. And just like in karma, the energy put out comes back at an intensive force, so does this. So when she's saying elevate, you can reach um, a higher level of emotions when it's two or more. That's why in the Bible it states when two or more people come together and worship in my name, this is the same aspect. Also, when you think about the yin yang sign, that's duality. When you think about the infinity sign, that's also duality. But those both shows duality with karma injected. And when you reach a balance of the two forces coming together, you get the third universal principle that Karma Sutra is based off of in harmony.
but what do you mean by height? You mean in terms of human experience?
I mean literally in terms of human experience. I mean in terms of elevating the mind. So this is what it was written for. Vatsyayan, who is the author of the Kama Sutra, actually says this in his introduction. He says that, the idea is, so as we talk about it, we'll talk about how elegant and beautiful and refined this whole world is. It's nothing like we think of the act of sex today. And it talks about this refinement and this beauty in such a way, because in ancient times they believed that everything had to start from the point of physical intimacy. So actually, I'm going to give you a little example of it and probably explain it better. Everything that every time a king came to the throne, they would have a version of the Kama Sutra commissioned for their kingdom. So there's not just one Kama Sutra, there are thousands of them. And each time they had it commissioned, they believed that if a couple could share really, really good, mutually pleasurable intimacy, that means that the relationship would be stable. If the relationship was stable, society would be stable. If society was stable, the kingdom would be stable.
Beautiful.
So this was about the bigger picture. It was about, they literally believed back in that time that success in any part of your life, whether you were a warrior, whether you're an economist, whether you're a trader, whatever it is that you did, success in any part of your life depended on your success in your physical, intimate life. And eventually, if the aim is to reach God, all love has to first begin at the physical level before you can start to elevate it. So I guess that's what I mean when I say that, it.
So it's an old mantra that most people understand as so above, so below. But that's incomplete because it actually states as so below, as so above, so below, but so within, so without. So not only are we talking about the earth and the heavens, we're talking about inside ourselves. So as we are inside, we can affect the outside of us. So they believe back in the day, if their house is good, if they happy within their marriage, if they're happy within their family, that happiness or that success will come out and spill into their environment. And that's true.
And hence it's not about sex, because sex, the act of sex, is on its own, it doesn't mean very much. It was about pleasure, it was about arousal, it was about desire, because of course in ancient times, again, we believed that the highest form of energy is the sexual energy. I mean, you're a sports person, you know that if you're out.
And also what she said, I want to build on that. After studying this, I've been studying this since I was 23. I'm 38 now. I began to look at the act of sex differently. I began to look at it as an exchange of energy. And through my course of practicing, I understood it's much more deeper than sexual positions. Sure, you get into it, but I began to be choosier with my partners, and once I seen that they couldn't evenly exchange that energy, because what had happened, and tell me if I'm lying in the comments, but a lot of times one partner may be more into it than the other partner and give them more energy, but they ain't getting the same energy back, and that becomes a problem. If females, let's be honest, if your man can't help you achieve a certain level of climax, does that not bother you? Does that really not bother you? But yet he wants you to do all this special stuff for him. So who's putting more energy into it? You're not getting back what you need. That becomes a problem. But if you find a partner and y'all exchanging that energy evenly, you get what they call harmony. It becomes perfect. It becomes much more than sex. Like I said, it's more of a transfer in energy.
If you're out there running or doing a certain amount of exercise, it gets your metabolism going. They believe that when you have arousal, when you're in the state of pleasure and elevating pleasure, there is more metabolism in your body than even when you exercise, because every part of your body goes into some form of activity. Your heart rate, right, your breathing, your hormones are being secreted, everything. And eventually, if you consider, this is where, if you carry this pleasure to its final point, this is how you can create life. Only God can create life. So, this was considered the highest form of energy because it's that powerful. These texts, whether it was the Arth Shastra, whether it's the Bhagavad Gita, whether it was the Kam Shastra, they were all written as treaties. They were written almost in scientific manner. And all science in those days was dedicated to God. So they're written in the form of hymns and poetry. And they're not really, even the Natya Shastra, the book on drama and dance, they're not written for the average person to understand. They're written in metaphors. So there are...
And what she said is true, because a lot of the ancient texts, the Bible, the Quran, the Kabbalah, even the Kemetic teachings, they're all parables and metaphors and allegories. And when a normal person reads them, what happens is you begin to take them word for word. But if you remember back into, I believe, middle school, grade school, maybe in high school, you had a class called Reading Comprehension, where you had to read a story and you had to figure out the author's ideology or the author's what message was the author conveying. That was a skill we was taught in school, but many people don't even use it, and it's used all around us. It's when you say a person saying an innuendo. If you read in the Bible, you got to understand metaphors, you got to understand allegories, you got to understand what a parable is, or you'll get lost in the words itself of the meaning.
Commentaries that you have to read to understand what they say. So if you go back to the Kama Sutra, the only thing that makes sense to the normal reader who doesn't know about what the other metaphors mean, the only thing that makes sense is the little tiny chapter on positions, because you understand what a position means. And that's why we've come to understand that the Kama Sutra is just about positions. We don't know what the positions are. We don't know why they were talking about. There was a reason over there for the positions as well. But yeah, so there is this point about it changes, the narrative changes, but if you don't even have the basic background of knowing what it was about, you can't actually go back to that story.
For a modern man and a woman, what are 3 separate kind of learnings that they can take away after studying the Kama Sutra the way you have? Just 3 learnings for men and 3 learnings for women, if you have to boil it down like that.
So what I'm going to tell you actually, Ranveer, is that I'm not going to give you 3 separate ones for men and women. And I'll tell you why. I'm going to give you 3 takeaways, but not separately. And I'll tell you why.
Sure.
A lot of people also come and ask me, what about gay relationships? What's the Kama Sutra say about gay relationships? Like I said, it actually talks about pleasure. So it talks about what gives a woman pleasure and what gives a man pleasure. It doesn't say that a man has to pleasure the woman.
No, through my studies, to be 100% honest, what she's about to define or say, I haven't ran across it. It was, like I said, the masculine energy and the feminine energy combined. That's what I took out when I studied. But yeah, this part, I mean, I understand being politically correct, but when I'm studying and what I studied and my personal practice, I'm a heterosexual, I got a wife, I'm gonna just let her go into it.
Woman or the woman has to pleasure the man, and so on. So sure. The idea here is that we are talking about understanding pleasure. For me, the first thing that struck me was the fact that there is absolutely no bad language used in the book. There's no abusive language. If you think about our sexual vocabulary, all of the words that we have for our sexual organs are abusive words. Okay? We go back in time, they talk about all of these words with such utter beauty. Even the vagina, for instance, is known as the Chandan Mahal. The clitoris is referred to as the Madan Chhatri, the umbrella of the love god, and so on. So I think that the words that you use start to also define your actions. The moment you stop thinking of that as dirty and bad and abusive, your mind already starts to change in the way that you approach something.
Right.
The next thing.
And what she's saying is 100% fact, because words generate a perception in our mind of how we perceive things. And if using a derogatory word, that's how you will perceive it. So if you watch any of my videos, I always talk about how I'm careful about what words I select, because I understand that words drive perception. And if we continue to use words that have a specific is attached with a specific perception and a negative light on the subject, we will continue to go about the same ways. That's why I said, like, when I think of me and my wife, I don't think of sex. I think of it as exchanging energy.
Next thing is that it absolutely does not permit any kind of violence. So through the entire text, it says, in a moment of passion, a man might get to a certain point where he lashes out in a moment of passion. You can't do this. You cannot hit so hard because so-and-so king did this to his mistress and he blinded his mistress. So-and-so king did this and he hurt his mistress. You cannot do this. And constantly it says that you cannot use any kind of violence or aggression. And it goes so far. This is the first text that actually gives women a sort of equality, a platform of equality. And it gives women the right to consent. So it actually says that it is up to the woman to decide if the pressure or the passion that is being used is too aggressive. So it says that, in a moment of passion, if your lover bites you too hard, if that love bite is too hard for you, tell him to stop. If he doesn't stop, you bite him back twice as hard till he stops, which we always think is a really cute way of saying it. But it's the first time that women are being given the right to consent. And I think that's amazing. The next thing it tells us is that men and women both have very, very different forms of pleasure. For a man, the pleasure is like fire. It's very, very quick to ignite. It's very quick to put out. It starts like fire. It starts down there. It goes upwards. A woman's passion is like water. Her pleasure is like water. It starts here and it goes downwards. And like water, it takes very long to come to the boil. takes very long to come down. Okay, and so it kind of tries to express its education in such a way that men and women understand. Because he goes on to say, he says that men and women are left to their own, their pleasure is never going to coincide because it's so different. So how do you actually go about doing this in a way that you both feel the same arousal, you both feel that pleasure in each other's company? And I think that it's...
Now again, we're talking about the law of duality. You see the two extremes, the fire and the water. When you bring them together, you get perfect balance. That's harmony. So you're using karma, law of duality, and harmony to achieve a higher level of energy between two people. So that's why I said, like, if you understand the Kundalini, if you understand the chakra system, the sexual energy is the strongest force to raise the Kundalini. It's a stronger force than meditation because it happens within an action. And if it's done correctly, it can elevate. It's two people versus one. Meditation, you by yourself with having sex and understanding how to transfer that energy. In a normal person, a woman can climax way more than a man, but a woman also has different levels of climax. A man only got one. So understanding how a man can balance his one climax and get the woman to climax multiple times and still reach the same level, is not equality, but it's equity, right?
It's just this idea of slowing everything down. It's about understanding that you slow it down because there are other things to do. The other amazing thing that I think is a takeaway from this.
And so even that part right there, like, man, I'm not even going to throw men under the bus, but when I was younger, I just thought of sex like we just do it. But as I got older and I started practicing this, like I was saying, the different levels of climax a woman can have, I learned, like she said, if I slow it down with the foreplay, if I learned a woman's body, like I can help her reach a higher level of climax and I'm still get mine.
It goes out of its way to explain to men that women have a very different form of pleasure, and the first time or the first few times that you make love, if you are too rushed and if you don't make it pleasurable for the woman, you will actually put her off it for the rest of her life.
Oh, wow.
So it actually tells you it explains to a man how to go about it. Okay. It then says that the most important thing, I mean, this is like a big chapter in there so the Kama Sutra is made up of 7 sections. Only section 2 deals with lovemaking and foreplay or pleasure. It says conversation is your biggest thing. So before you make love, before you even start your foreplay, what is the thing that you're supposed to start with? Conversation. So it says that the man must tell the woman stories to make her shed her inhibitions, start to get her desire going, etc. And he says, okay, at this point, you have to tell different types of stories. So you have to kind of tell her stories which are slightly gossipy or naughty.
Now, she's talking about the first section, and the first section of the book, it actually teaches men is not the art of seduction, but how to excite or get a Pacific woman interested, like the woman that you with. There's other sections, and I think it's like 3 or 4 that tell you how to pick a bride. But the first volume actually started speaking about you and the partner. How to, like I said, ignite a woman's interest. And a lot of times it's conversation. You can start with conversation, then it'll tell you like different parts of the body you can arouse. You can get her aroused by touching, like the earlobe, the neck, the nipples. But I'm gonna let her build.
Something that'll get a reaction from her, basically. So she's supposed to say, oh my God, you didn't seriously say that, or, or whatever. So basically, you're supposed to get her to shed her inhibitions. After making love, you have a different set of conversations. Because after you made love, so before you make love, you're supposed to have a conversation that's supposed to excite her. After you make love, the conversation is even more important, because he says that the way that you finish this time will define how quickly she comes back to your bed next time. So at the end of it, you have to now tell her beautiful stories of lovers who come together and they make love and they're really happy that they made love. Because you have to convince her now that actually what you've done is a good thing, and it's a good thing for both of you. So it's actually really, really, it's impressive the way that he gets into the psyche of both man and woman. And I think the most important thing I would like to say, and I want people to understand this, the Kama Sutra is not about teaching women how to seduce men. The Kama Sutra was actually written to teach men how to pleasure a woman, because in the 300 and something AD.
And that's one of the biggest things that I learned and how I benefited from this, because it makes you understand women better. And not all women, because to be honest, this like I said, you have to have a willing participant in anything in life, right? You know, you can put all this energy into something, but if it's not coming back, it don't feel good. You know, but when you do find that right person, then it I can't even explain it, but when you do find that right person, it's like what they say is like a soulmate. You know, I truly believe if you don't believe in soulmates and you study and practice this, you'll believe in it. Because finding that perfect partner to exchange energy with, not just to bump, you know, but to actually share. And what I learned from this is how to I receive pleasure out of pleasure in my wife. You know, I get pleasure out of her pleasure now, and it's vice versa. So that energy, that bond, you know, we both are getting pleasure by pleasuring one another.
Men were not taught how to read. Women were not taught how to read or write. So men were taught how to read or write, and hence this book is written for men. And the patron deity of the Kama Sutra is not Kamdev. It's not the god of love and desire. The patron deity of the Kama Sutra is Saraswati, the goddess of music and learning, because it says that you can be rich, you can be anything, but only a man who is culturally really well versed, he's the most desirable lover of all.
All right, so yeah, what I personally learned from this, or how I benefit from this, it gave me a different perspective, not just on sex, but my interaction with women. Because, like I said, it's 7 chapters, and one of the chapters teach you conduct with your wife, but also conduct with the wives of other men. You know, how to show appreciation, but not disrespect. You know, and I don't, me personally, for me to understand things, I have to put it in a practical sense. So I have to practice things, you know, and I'm gonna give you a formula: knowledge plus practice plus time will give you wisdom. You know, the information that you have, the information that you get, you have to put it to practice, and over time it will become wisdom. That's a gem. That's an actual occult formula for knowledge. For wisdom, but not just by reading a book. Like I said, most people think Kama Sutra is just a sex book, but it's not. It's actually an instruction manual to men on how to court women, how to pleasure women, and how to interact with women, not only your own, but other women. And like I said, I practice it. So by practicing it, I began to understand. And just like anything, you know, I done studied and practiced almost every religion they have, except for Zoroastrianism. I studied it, but I haven't practiced it. I haven't practiced in a synagogue Hebrew, but you know, I studied under some Israelites, even the Kemetic form. I practice the spirituality part. And when you begin to practice these things, you begin to understand the philosophies, right? And just like anything in life, I take out what's beneficial to me, and the things that's not beneficial, I don't use them. And that's what we do in life. But I can say, ever since I begun to practice this, I never really was a cheater, but by practicing this, it gave me a different outlook on women and how I interact with women. And it's been beneficial to me because, I've been married for 4 years, been with my wife for 11 now. And we don't argue. We have conversations. It made me more understanding towards women. It made me more appreciative towards women. So I think, just my opinion, I think every man should at least look at this, and I think women should too. I believe women should pick this up because it do tell you how to different sexual positions. It talks about like oral sex and the benefits of it. And see, like most, just having conversations, it's not funny, but most men don't even know what a Grafenberg spot is or G spot. They don't even know what it is, let alone where it's located, let alone the function of it. Like if most men understood that you just stimulate the G spot before you have intercourse, it'll make her pleasure a lot greater because it's a gland, and the more you stimulate it, it begins to swell. So that's not going to do anything but make her arousal, make her sensations intensify. And then understanding how to properly stimulate the clitoris and understanding the different levels of climax each one can give you. And then you get an overstanding. What if I stimulate both of these at the same time? What'll happen? And you get, me as a man, I get pleasure out of that. I get pleasure out of, because now I have the understanding, the information, and the knowledge to do it. That gives me the confidence to do it. So a lot of men, like I said, they just understand it as sex, and they don't understand the power it has. Like they say, happy wife, happy life. That's true. The more happier I make her, the more happier she makes me. And like I said, it begins to translate to other sections of our life, not just in the bedroom, but just the normal way we communicate. We still have that energy flowing between us two. And me personally, I don't have even an inkling. And I know a lot of people come on here and cap, but I don't have an inkling or desire for any woman besides my wife. Like that thought don't even cross my mind because of the information and knowledge I know now. But that's just me personally. I can't promise if your man read this book, he'll never cheat on you, you won't have that desire. I can't promise you that. I'm just saying how it works for me. Because I know for a fact I'm not going to get what I got with my wife from no one else. And like I said, this book teaches you how to select the right partner. This does not work if you don't have a willing participant. It will not work at all. You just be sending all this extra energy out and not receiving nothing back. This is literally the transfer of energy, the recycling of energy through two parties. Like I said, it focuses on three universal principles. That's karma, that's duality, and that's harmony. Harmony is that last function if you can balance the two energies out. That's what harmony is. It's perfect balance. But that's how it benefited me. And if you got any questions, hit me up in a comment. I put my IG in the description. You can hit me on IG. If you want to do a live and break this down and talk about it or build on it, just hit me up. As I believe conversations can build nations, right? And do me a favor, if you ain't do it by now, hit that like and hit that subscribe button. It's free, baby. It'll help me grow so I can grow the information. And also turn on the noti bell. When I go live, we go live. But I'm the word, and that's all I got for you. I'm out, man.